Thank you.
Item 1A, flag salute. Vice Chair Magrin will lead us with the flag salute.
I pledge allegiance to the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, item 1B, report regarding the posting of the agenda. The agenda for the November 13, 2017 meeting was posted on the bulletin board outside of City Hall on November 9, 2017. Item 2, introductions and presentations. Item 2A, introduction of new student ex officio members, Rebecca Alfred and Malin Austin.
Members of the Commission, Vice Chair Magrin, and members of the audience, we are delighted to introduce our new 2 student ex officio members. Commissioner Perrian and Samerjan went through many applications and screened and interviewed, and Commissioners Alfred and Austin rose to the top, so they are with us here today, and we wanted to welcome them and allow them the opportunity to introduce themselves. So we'll start with student ex officio Alfred.
Okay, hello everyone. My name is Rebecca Alfred and I'm a junior at Herbert Hoover High School. I wanted to start off by thanking the Commission for giving me this opportunity. I am very passionate about women's issues, and this opportunity is amazing, and I'm really glad that you guys selected me. Volunteering is something that I've always loved to do, and I've gotten to experience many memorable things, and this commission is allowing me to be more involved in our city. And volunteering has ultimately led me to create a club called Random Acts of Kindness at my school, and it has been very life-changing in that I've been able to interact with my fellow students. I look forward to expanding my knowledge on women's issues, and it's truly an honor to be selected as a student ex officio member. So thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Commissioners. My name is Malin Austin. I'm a junior at Crescenta Valley High School. I would also like to say thank you for selecting me as your student ex officio for this year. I'm also very passionate about women's issues, and I'm also very avid about helping women in our community. And so I thank you for this opportunity to allow me to continue to find new ways for helping women in our community. For the past 4 years, I have been very involved in mentoring Girl Scout Robotics, which is a program that is solely girl teams that encourages girls that STEM careers, and along with other career paths that are strictly male-dominated, traditionally are not only for boys. And so I would also be very honored if one of you would be willing to come speak to the girls about everything that this commission has done for the community and how it affects them. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I'm looking forward to being able to work under you and learn about how you guys have worked for the past couple years. Thank you.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda, please.
Item 2B, presentation. Ellen, I hope I'm not butchering your last name. Ellen Item, Office of Women's Health, Department of Public Health. Did I get that right? Awesome. Welcome.
Good evening. Is it on? Yes, it's on. So thank you for inviting me, and good evening to Vice Chair Magrin and the other commissioners, as well as the city staff and the ex officio members. That's great that you're part of this commission. So in my short time, and again, my name is Ellen Item. I'm the director of the Office of Women's Health, which is part of the Department of Public Health, which is part of LA County. In the short time that I have, I thought I would try to do a couple things. One is to tell you a little bit about the Office of Women's Health and some of our key initiatives. 2 is to be able to talk a little bit about our hotline and ways that you might be able to utilize that for the services within your city. And then 3 is to be able to go over a few key data points and leave you with the information and see if there's any way that we can be helpful for the future in terms of looking at some of the data. Just giving you the quick version is that our Office of Women's Health, unlike part of the Department of Public Health, which is a very old department, is very young. We began there was a big summit in 1998, and one of the many 101 recommendations, one of them was to establish an Office of Women's Health. The Board of Supervisors the next year established it, and we began with only two people, and it was a kind of fledgling office. We started right away having a Women's Health Policy Council, and that council was able to give us they're my advisors and advocates for sort of what are the key issues, and they represent various parts of the community and the professional community. What ended up happening is we began very kind of traditionally women's health focused, breast and cervical cancer. We had a very large funding from the California Endowment, did a giant program on cervical and breast cancer. And we started up a 7-language hotline at that point. What was then very clear is cervical and breast cancer, although clearly very important. But when you think about what are the number 1 and 2 killers of women, it is heart disease and heart disease and heart disease. And stroke obviously is number 2, but it is clearly breast and cervical are one part of a whole package, and it was very important for us to look outside of some of the traditional areas of women's health. What was really a turning point for us was in 2007. We had a very big policy summit again. 450 leaders came together, and they really helped give me and our office the direction that we should be going for the next many, many years. And what they tried to do is look at what are the 10 areas that are the key areas for women's health that we should be focusing on. And some of which public health is the leader on, and some of which we work very closely with partners and we help to facilitate and collaborate. Part of, in the end, we're still a small office, and so a lot of what we do is with collaboration and facilitation. So just to say who we are now is that we really think of ourselves as the umbrella that we work under is under the issue of health equity for women. We look at kind of what's the big picture? What's the big picture of what causes, the disparities between one group of women and another group of women? What are some of the social determinants? What are the things that really cause some women to be in the situations that they are? And how do we think, from a public health perspective, how do we think about prevention, and how do we think about really moving upstream? What causes some of these things as opposed to just treating the symptoms of it? So that's really the public health principles of all of that. And so part of what we always say is that we work at the individual, the community, and the societal and policy level, is that the issues themselves can change, but the umbrella of health equity and kind of what causes those disparities really doesn't change. So I'll just go over a few of the things that we do. One of them, as you can see, is that we put out a data report, and I'll go into some of the detail on this. And this tries to look at some of the top health indicators for women and tries to look at them by race, ethnicity, and by poverty level. So one can really see kind of what are the key issues. What it doesn't answer, obviously, is all the analysis behind it, and that's part of what all of our job is to be able to try to understand what does all this mean and what can we do about it, and working with all of the collaborators that we work with to be able to understand that more thoroughly. The second, a whole big area, and again, these are the same areas that were identified in 2007, and we're still working in many collaborations today on these areas. So healthy aging, that has become, as you know, the changing demographics are part of, what we live and breathe right now. And given that, what we had to look at is how do we help look at kind of these change of demographics and explain what the implications of all of that is to the leaders that we work with within all of the community-based organizations, within the community, within the county, the city, etc. So part of what we do is we've had 11 different healthy aging events where we try to bring the community leaders together. We formed an organization called the Los Angeles Alliance for Community Health and Aging, and there's about 80 different organizations within that. And what we do is that we're trying to scale up what we call evidence-based health promotion programs for older adults, for those with chronic disease, and for those with a potential of chronic disease, at risk for chronic disease. And the idea is that only a small amount of health really happens within the doctor's office or the confines. A lot of it happens in the community. And so there's evidence-based health promotion programs specifically that have been proven to be able to help both with quality of life, but also with health outcomes. And so we're working very hard in all parts of the community, multilingually, to be able to bring out these programs. We're also working on domestic violence, intimate partner violence, sexual violence, and this is an area that we're incredibly passionate about. We have been saying for years that public health needed to have a much stronger role in the whole arena, and at the same time not duplicate the incredible efforts that are already being done by so many incredibly wonderful community-based organizations. So part of what we have been trying to do is look at how do we work within the county to be able to build organizational commitment, work on the training of all the public health and others within the staff. How do we work on the collaboration between the county and the community-based organizations? How do we contribute to research and data and evaluation? And how do we work on policy and advocacy? We also work on cancer prevention and treatment. We do a lot of work on the arena of HPV, trying to look at why is the vaccination rate so much lower in certain communities than others. We work at the local, state, and national level. In areas that we had worked on that are now some of our partners are taking the lead on that came out of that summit years ago. One is for Lesbian and Bisexual Women's Health Collaborative, and that now is being led by the City of West Hollywood, in which we're doing cultural competency trainings to both administratively. We go to hospitals and do it on the administrative side, but we also do it for the provider community. And then another area is reproductive health and the environment. And this again came out of the original conference in 2007, and UCLA is now the lead on this. We just had our 7th annual conference that looks at trying to say what are the toxins, what are the environmental toxins that can affect the fetus and the mother, and what are the implications of all of that, there's 3 different areas. There's a scientific area, there's an advocacy area, and there's a community area. And then lastly, what I'll say is the whole arena of our multilingual hotline. And what you have in your packet is we have many different kinds of materials. Where is you have it in there somewhere. Let's see. Oh, here it is. It looks like this. So part of what we wanted to share with you is that we have multilingual operators. And up until very recently, and I know for the city of Glendale, having an Armenian-speaking operator is very important. We have had one up until recently, and she went on to another position. So at the moment, we do not. But up until very recently, we have. So part of what we do is we encourage people to call, and that we have 2 different, it comes in 2 different ways. One is like our women's health hotline, which has been there traditionally for all these years, and that we're able to provide, information, referrals, and hook people up. We actually, if they need an appointment, we can actually help make the appointment for people. But what we also began was using the same phone number, but now we also call it the LA Health Line, because we want to make it open to all individuals. And part of what we're trying to do is we do a lifestyle assessment on the hotline that then helps people, guide them to lifestyle change programs that they could be part of. Now, so if the hotline can be helpful to you or your constituents, please feel free. And if there's any materials that you need, please let us know. I want to say just a minute about we have a new director of our Department of Public Health, Dr. Barbara Ferrer, who is a wonderful and incredibly inspirational leader. So just one of the priorities that she has identified and that we've now begun is that we just have literally launched a new center, which is the Center for Health Disparities. And there's like 5 different initiatives that are going to be that are being launched out of this. So one is closing the gap on infant mortality, and that Black babies die at 3 times the rate of white babies within LA County, and it's just 100% unacceptable. And so part of what, and it's also true for Native American and Native Hawaiian babies. So there's a whole push to be able to, over the next 5 years, truly move the needle on all of this. So one is closing the gap on infant mortality. One is closing the gap on sexually transmitted infections, which are disproportionately high in both among men of color, the LGBTQ community, and African American women. The third is reducing disproportionate exposures to environmental toxins, and that's the high burden of environmental hazards are in communities of color and low-income communities. The fourth relates to improving fragmented care and episodic care and trying to better coordination, especially as it relates to the Department of Mental Health services. And the fifth one is ensuring linguistic and cultural competency for the staffing and for being able so that the staff of the county, the health agencies are far more culturally competent. So again, all of those we could say a lot more about, but then let's switch over to look a little bit about the data. And I'm just going to raise just a couple points to you. And I encourage you to take a look. Don't hesitate. Christine has my information, and if we can be helpful in any kind of further explanation. But again, this is our 4th edition of the report. What we want to, let's a couple just highlights. One is that there's about 3.5 million women in Los Angeles. 70% of them are women of color. About 46% are foreign-born, and 37% speak a language other than English at home. Mostly speak. Many speak sometimes, but mostly speak it. Now, we have some PowerPoints and we have some information, so if we are happy to give those to you as opposed to having to take any kind of notes on this. And also, you have inside your packet, you have a 1-page sheet that goes over some of the main highlights, which is this one. This just tries to draw some of the main highlights out. So when we look, and again, I'm just going to pick out a few. So just in terms of looking at the social determinants, when you look at poverty alone, 1 in 4 women live in poverty, which is the under 100% of poverty, and over half of the women in LA County live below 200% of poverty. When you look at Latinas, 70% of Latinas and 60% of Black women live below 200% of poverty in Los Angeles County. When you look at what poverty then contributes to, then you're looking at, everything from higher food insecurity to feeling like they live the people live in unsafe neighborhoods, to higher prevalence of obesity and diabetes and sort of all the health conditions. So obviously, and we all know this, that poverty determines so much of health. Very important is when you look at life expectancy, there is incredible differences between, for example, for Asian women, the life expectancy is 89 years. If for African American or for Black women, it's 79 years. Again, this is unacceptable. It's not one thing, it's a whole series of things that add up to sort of why does this happen. When you look at things like healthcare coverage and access, there have been incredible gains under the ACA. The percent of uninsured women in Los Angeles County decreased by more than half. So it went from 26% in 2011, which was at its high, to 10% in 2015. Dramatically different. Still not good enough, but it's dramatically improved. And the largest decrease was among Latinas, which went from 41% to 14%. It's still the highest at 14%, but it dramatically decreased. But the biggest change in insurance has really come from the increases of Medi-Cal. And what happened was that the percentage of women that increased went from 20% in 2011 all the way up to 36%, with the highest increases being in Latinas that went from 27 to 47%, and Black women between 33% and 51%. So those were dramatic changes that ensured a much larger percentage of our population. And then saying just a little bit about the causes of death and the causes of premature death. So as I was saying, the things that have still stayed at the top for the highest, the reasons that number 1 and number 2 are coronary heart disease and stroke remain the causes of death. But number 3, which has changed dramatically, is that Alzheimer's for women has now raised to number 3. Third reason for death in Los Angeles County is Alzheimer's. When you look at the area of premature death, you still have coronary heart disease as number 1, but then you have the cancers. You have the breast cancer and lung cancer as for women again as the second and third. But the one that's risen to the 4th is now the unintentional drug overdose. So that's all of your opioid, the whole problem with opioid usage. Okay, so I'm going to skip all of this in the interest of time. And what I would just say is that part of what we're looking at is an incredibly diverse population with very different and diverse and unique needs, and that there have been some gains, which we've talked, we mentioned, and there's a lot more that are in the report, but there is a great deal of work to still be done, a great deal. And so part of what we're trying to really look at is those deep-rooted determinants of health. And in particular, what we were able to do in the report this time was to look at what's the impact of trauma, what's the impact of discrimination, of racial bias, of homelessness. How do all those things add and impact the lives and health of women in Los Angeles County? And I'm going to stop there and just say one sentence about Glendale, because whenever we do some kind of a report, speaking about the report, people obviously want to know about, can you tell us very detailed information about our own city or our own area? And so the tricky part of this is that we use big population-based surveys, but that those surveys, when you cut them by all the different levels, we have a report by spas, and we have information by spa, by gender, but when you start cutting it by city and gender and on, the population isn't large enough to be able to really do the conclusions on it. So if you're interested in some of that, we can send you some links that might be helpful, but it wouldn't be from our data. It would be from others' data that you might. And often others' data don't look at it by gender. So we are one of the only reports that really try to do all of the indicators by gender.
Thank you.
We appreciate the presentation. I really appreciated this flyer with the 800 numbers. So if we can have more.
Absolutely.
In my position within the district office, we serve our foster and homeless youth and a lot of the low-income families. So I think this would really come in handy for families to pick up. So if you do have some, I'll connect with Christine and get your information and get these flyers so we can have more in the office.
Okay. And if you can, we don't have this one. I don't believe I can check in multiple. I mean, there's English, Spanish is on the back, but we do have other materials in multiple languages.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you.
I would like to thank you for all this informative information that you gave us, especially your collaboration county with the community organizations, and you mentioned something about domestic violence.
Yes.
And especially I'm impressed with this hotline bilingual. I want to ask you something. Are you collaborating with YWCA?
Well, we literally we met each other just now, and my office had been coordinating something with her office, but we actually didn't know each other. So
I see.
And we also work with some of the other Ys.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Thank you. We appreciate your time. Yes, of course.
Of course.
Thank you very much for this informative presentation. I definitely learned a lot. I am deeply saddened to hear about the disparity in infant mortality. I know you touched on the causes of death for women. Is there any data on the causes of death for the infants, and what is the common cause of death that is accounting for this disparity?
There is, but the bottom line, and I can send you some, we have a really, they're just developing the briefing on all of this right now, which is very, and I don't want to pretend I can articulate it as well as our director, Dr. Barbara Ferrer, but when you account for everything that you can account for, it still doesn't account for what the reason is. And so a lot of this, and you've probably heard this, it's all over now, that it really comes down to the stress, the racism, the years of trauma. I mean, there's nothing that when you look at all the scientific data, it's not enough to be able to account for that difference.
Would it also be a lack of access to prenatal care?
Well, but that's only a piece. When you look at, that's what I mean. When you look at all the factors they can account for, it still does, and they take all those into consideration with the data. It doesn't account for the profound difference that there is. But I'll share with you the briefing. They're still finalizing it, but as soon as it's ready, I'll be happy to share it.
Certainly, please. I will do my own research, and I will be looking forward to that as well.
Good. Thank you all.
Thank you, Ms. Idem, for, I'm going to reiterate my colleagues for a very, very interesting report that's very well put together. I appreciate this. I appreciate the update. Working in healthcare myself and having dealings with the public health, I really am glad that there's a new office now.
Yes.
For women's health. And I do want to thank the city for reaching out to you to bring you into our commission, and delighted that through this there's already a collaboration going on with the YWCA. I feel like the commission can serve as a liaison between the two organizations as well.
Thank you. And if there's anything that we could be helpful with, please don't hesitate.
And if I may...
Go ahead. No.
While I have you here, you also mentioned the rise in Alzheimer's, and it was quite significant of a rise. Is there any data on that as well?
There is, and I can send you some of that information.
Please. Thank you.
I would like to also ask, you did indicate that you have PowerPoint deck with all of the information you presented. That would be very helpful. Okay. I was trying to keep up with notes, but then
of course.
I decided just to listen.
Yes. I'd be happy to send it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 3, oral comment. Discussion is limited to items not a part of this agenda. Each speaker is allowed 5 minutes. The commission may question or respond to the speaker, but there will be no debate or discussion. Staff may refer the matter to the proper department for investigation and report.
My understanding is that we have a speaker, Lida Salukanian. Did I pronounce it right? Yeah. Sulikan, yeah. Thank you.
So, thank you so much for giving me the time. I appreciate it very much. My name is Lida, and 12 years ago, I was the recipient of Jewel of Glendale, Woman of Courage by the Commission on the Status of Women. And those days I was working with YWC of Glendale and the domestic violence program. After that, I did not stop fighting for women's equality, healthy life, healthy families, but this time I used my pen and I wrote a book. And it's a life of a woman going through a lot, but coming out as a survivor. And the name of my book is Life Written with God's Pen, A Mother's Odyssey to Freedom. I think this is a good lesson for all of us as women because unfortunately just last month, October, is a month for domestic violence. And I hope one day there won't be any month dedicated to domestic violence so we can all enjoy happy and healthy families, especially the children who are the silent sufferer of the domestic violence. I dedicated this book first to my parents and then secondly to all the women in this world. I said that this book is dedicated to women, girls, sisters, mothers, and wives all over the world, with great hope that my story will give you the hope when life seems hopeless, faith when you are frightened, and courage to fight without giving up, even when you are feeling tired and betrayed. Be true to yourself, and I promise you will embrace the light of life in the end. This is something that I think, because when we go through the hardship of life and the domestic violence, and not just the internal domestic violence, but also the regime, where you have to fight with it. I'm coming from Iran, so I've been there, done that. And, for me to take my child and take him out to give him a free life was very difficult because those days during the revolution, nobody wanted us even. No visa, nothing. I mean, we were just, as if forgotten folk. But I managed it because I had a strong faith. And I want to spread this word. I think this book should be in every university, high school, hospitals, all the domestic violence programs. So when they need a help, thank God in this country there is so much help for that. In my country there was none. I had to fight all alone by myself and got up there. He helped me to come out. And he helped me to manage to write this book, though it was difficult. I'm a private person. I don't like to, open my life for people. But hoping that this book might encourage, give hope to even 10 women, then my mission is done as a woman. So I want to ask the Commission's kind assistance in spreading the word about this book. The book is already on Amazon, on paperback and ebook. And I hope it will help. It will help so many, my sisters, my fellow female. And that's why I'm here, because I know how much you are involved in women's issues and how much you are trying hard to give them a fulfilled life, especially those who are less unfortunate. And thank you so much for your time. And I brought a book, and I want to, give this as a present to your library, and hopefully, it will help your life and will give them hope. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thanks.
Wow. Ms. Sarhanan, we appreciate you. I'm not sure how to say this, but I'm an immigrant myself. I did come from Iran, so I understand the hardship that you've gone through. So it is really empowering. As I said, in my position, we serve a lot of homeless and foster families and also domestic violence. So I understand how difficult it is as a woman to share and come out. That is very courageous, and I can't wait to read your book.
Thank you. I appreciate it very much. And I wish you a healthy and happy life, all of you. Thank you. I will just write something and I will leave it here.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate
Thank you for your
Thanks.
time.
Thank you.
Item 4, consent items. 4A, approval of the minutes of the special commission meeting held on August 21st of 2017.
I think I will abstain from approving these minutes because, as I'm board member of YWCA, and something to do with the Camp Rosie. It's written.
I'll make the motion to approve the minutes.
But
Reading the minutes.
This item is just for the minutes, so
Yeah.
this is just, you would be abstaining since you were absent from the
Yes.
last meeting.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Roll call?
Okay, Chair Burns, Commissioner Khojayan,
We didn't get a second to the motion. I think we just heard a motion from Commissioner Perrin. Was there a second to the motion?
I second the motion.
Okay, thank you.
okay, Commissioner Khojayan,
Abstain.
Vice Chair Magrin,
Yes.
Commissioner Simurjan,
Present.
Commissioner Perrin.
Approve.
Item 5A, action items. 5A1, consideration and discussion of transferring Camp Rosie to the Glendale YWCA.
If I may, I think this is the item that Commissioner Hojayan wishes to abstain from because she serves on the board of the YWCA. So I think you probably want to hear a report first from staff.
So do you want me to leave the... Okay.
Item 1A, motion providing direction to provide the Glendale YWCA $5,000 seed money to implement Camp Rosie.
Ms. Powers, can you please provide a report on this item?
Certainly. Vice Chair Magrin, members of the Commission, for several years the Commission had implemented its signature program, Camp Rosie, which was a leadership skills camp for young women and girls in the city of Glendale. The purpose of Camp Rosie was to interrupt patterns of poverty and violence and to prepare girls to live healthy and successful lives. Camp Rosie was a citywide collaborative program developed for young women and girls between 12 to 18 years of age in order to empower them to make personal, educational, financial, and career choices from an expanded set of possibilities in order to provide them with tools to be self-sufficient, have career and life satisfaction, and long-term financial security. It was offered in 2 repeating 3-week sessions, so students had an opportunity to either go earlier in the summer or later in the summer. And it introduced girls to education and training in kind of like a holistic approach to self-development. It included financial literacy, self-empowerment, fitness and nutrition, self-defense, healthy relationships, and non-traditional careers. Due to various factors, Camp Rosie is no longer being offered by the Commission on the Status of Women in the City of Glendale, and the last year that it was in operation was 2014. During a strategic planning meeting held by the Commission in 2015, members of the Commission expressed interest in finding a community partner that would take over the program on an ongoing basis. So based on this feedback, as well as feedback from the Programming for Girls ad hoc committee that the Commission had at one point, there was a strong recommendation to partner with the Glendale YWCA to determine whether or not they would be able to take on Camp Rosie. YWCA was in staffing-wise in a state of flux, but Executive Director Tara Peterson has been there for over a year now, has been able to offer some outstanding leadership for the organization, and the Commission is now at a point where conversations with the YWCA can move forward, and the YWCA has expressed interest in taking on this program. Ms. Peterson has basically said that this can be built into their prevention programming because she does believe in Camp Rosie and sees it as a violence prevention for young girls, and the connection is very clear for her. She has the staffing to provide this in-house. A lot of the skill sets that the Commission would depend on, different organizations to come in and do for Camp Rosie, the YWCA can do that within their own staff, because a lot of the things that Camp Rosie is based on are things that they teach in various programs and outreach. And they do believe that they can have Camp Rosie operational through the YWCA by the summer of 2018. They did ask for $5,000 seed money for the first year, with the understanding that they would be able to build in funding through local grants and various other funding sources and fundraisers, like the brunch empowerment that we're probably going to do later on with the YWCA, in order to be able to fund this themselves. So this would be a one-time funding that we would be providing. Ms. Peterson is here to offer any additional details that staff may have missed or answer any questions. I will invite her up here at this time. And if there's any questions for staff.
Hi, good evening. Thank you so much. Thank you for inviting me to be here. I'm honored and excited about this potential opportunity to partner with Camp Rosie. Like Christine said, one of the things that we really shifted, and actually, if you read the first article that was written by the Glendale News Press, when I came on board, my focus was really on building our prevention. We do a lot of great work around intervention and crisis intervention, but we really feel like the only way to end domestic violence is to prevent it from occurring. And so working Camp Rosie is actually a really good fit because of all the different skill sets that they're building around the life skills, around self-esteem. We really believe that those are protective factors that can decrease a girl's chances of becoming a victim of domestic violence. We know that when girls have higher self-esteem, they have access to resources that in itself can protect them from becoming a victim of domestic violence. And so we think that this program can fit nicely into our current prevention program. We were recently just awarded a grant. We are one of there's 30 domestic violence organizations in Los Angeles County, and we were one of 9 programs that were awarded a prevention grant, $225,000 for the next 3 years to build our capacity to do work around prevention. And so we really feel like this can fit into that work, and that's why we'll be able to sustain it the next fiscal year.
Thank you. I had a couple of questions.
Yes, please.
So I am looking into, so I understand that the age group is between 12 and 18 years old, correct?
Yes, that was the initial, I believe, the initial target audience of Camp Rosie before. Yes.
Are we going to, is it going to remain the same, or are we going to make any changes to the age group?
We've been talking a little bit about that. I really think a really good age is the junior high school age. Freshmen, maybe. I think that makes it just a little bit more of an impact. I think when you have such a broad age range, it can be really difficult to really kind of meet everybody's needs and different and just requires different resources. And so we really think that if we focus more on the junior high before high school, that's when young girls start dating. They really need to learn about healthy relationships and boundaries. And so we really think junior high is the target audience we would like to focus on.
And then, so I do have a couple of questions since I work for the school district.
Yes, please.
The recruitment process, how are the students recruited or...
Yeah, so what we were thinking, because we want to make sure that we have a diverse group of students, and we want to also make sure that students who are low income are able to attend. And so we would want to work with the school district in finding a way of either helping us identify young girls that are maybe at risk, but also want to open it up for the broader community as well. And so we want to be able to figure out how can we balance having a real diverse group, but at the same time not limiting our reach and recognizing that it's only going to be able to serve 20 girls per se at this time. And so being able to make sure we meet our numbers, but not get a whole bunch of people to put on a waiting list as well. And so just trying to manage that expectation.
So it's going to be about 20 girls,
yeah, usually it's
right?
About 20
and
girls.
7 weeks?
We were looking at possibly doing a 4-week session over the summer, and then looking at how we can possibly do it during other school breaks. And so we're thinking that, because we want something that we feel like if you just do one thing in the summer and then it goes away, there's no way to really build upon that. And so if there's a way for us to build upon, starting with the summer and then going into the school year where there are some breaks and opportunities, we really feel like that has a bigger impact.
Thank you. I would love to send you some names so we can work together.
Yes, please, definitely, yes.
I have a question. The $5,000 seed money, where is that coming from? Is that from the fund, the commission fund that we have?
Yes, that is available funding for
wonderful.
the commission, yes.
Okay, good.
Are there any other questions?
I would just like to point out from staff having been a part of Camp Rosie and at certain points supervising the director, at other points actually being the camp director for one summer, closing the age gap for the age range, I should say, is a recommendation that I would concur with too. I think the commission offered a broad range just to be inclusive. It was a city service and wanted to capture as many girls as possible, but I agree with Ms. Peterson in that closing the age range, whether it's the older set or the younger set, and the younger set certainly makes sense. You can narrow the conversation a little bit more and really focus it, whereas, a 12-year-old and an 18-year-old are truly in different places.
I agree.
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Thank you very much. Thanks for your time again.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Motion?
Anybody, motion?
You're looking for a motion to...
Yes.
Looking for a motion from the other commissioners because Commissioner Hojayan has recused herself.
Yes.
Yes, I'll second.
So Commissioner Submergent's making the motion with a
Yes.
second from Commissioner Perrion?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay.
Should I?
Yes, you can do a roll call.
Okay. Commissioner Hojayan? Abstain. Vice Chair Magrin?
Yes.
Commissioner Submergent?
Yes.
Commissioner Perrion?
Yes.
Thank you very much. So we'll be working with the YWCA to provide them with any resources necessary in addition to the funding, Camp Rosie curriculum, and any other information we can provide to help make Camp Rosie a success for the YWCA. This is very exciting. Thank you very much.
All right. Next item on the agenda, please.
Item 2 under business agenda, consideration and discussion of ad hoc committees to support the 2015 to 2018 Commission on the Status of Women's Strategic Plan. Item A, motion to establish ad hoc committees.
Vice Chair Magrin, may I provide a brief report on this item?
Yes.
Members of the Commission, ad hoc committees have been a part of the Commission on the Status of Women since 2015 in order to provide commissioners with the opportunity to further the goals and help accomplish the goals set in your strategic plan that runs from 2015 to 2018. Certain ad hoc committees have come and gone as their need has been met. For example, there was an ad hoc committee on the report on the status of women and girls to help narrow the focus in working with Mount St. Mary's University to help bring that report forward and what topics would be in that report with direction from the Commission. In addition, there was a Programming for Girls ad hoc committee that helped bring the previous item to fruition in working with YWCA for Camp Rosie. So there are two ad hoc committees that are a little bit more, standing committees that don't have very specific, goals with an end date, although they certainly could. And that is ad hoc committees, 1 on education and outreach, and 2 community partnerships. In your report, it indicates who's currently on each of those ad hoc committees. So ad hoc committee 1. This committee is the one that helps bring the speakers that you see, like the Office of Women's Health today. They help organize that schedule as to who's going to come and make presentations to the Commission and help inform the public. And this committee had also expressed interest in working to help identify speakers, develop a new system of recognizing women in the community in lieu of the Jules Luncheon. And this is certainly one that we can continue to work towards or not. And ad hoc committee 2 under community partnerships. This committee works on building alliances and collaborating with the community to improve the status and well-being of women and girls in Glendale. It's really to review existing partnerships, seek out new partnerships, make sure that the women and girls of Glendale are aware of resources such as the Office of Women's Health, and are connected to those resources, whether it's legal resources at the YWCA, and just make sure that the city, the Commission through the city can help keep those lines of communication open with its residents. And as mentioned, we had an ad hoc committee on the report on the status of women and girls, as well as for programming for girls, and those 2 are no longer in existence. Staff recommends that another ad hoc committee that can be considered, should the commission want to move forward with, is one that works on identifying the strategic aims and goals for the commission after 2018. So the strategic goals that are included as an exhibit in your report, most of them hopefully will be met by the end of 2018. Some of them might still carry over, but it would be nice to have an ad hoc committee that can review those and start brainstorming about some other strategic goals, work on that in between our quarterly meetings, and then bring back for the commission's consideration, because it would ultimately be adopted by the commission, some ideas for ongoing strategic goals beyond 2018. That would be one suggestion. And this committee would probably need to be in existence through 2018 at some point, so probably for about a year. For any of the ad hoc committees, it would be requested that commissioners volunteer to serve on the ad hoc committees. You have some existing commissioners on ad hoc committees 1 and 2. We can certainly keep those commissioners. We can move commissioners around to provide commissioners with different experiences. Staff recommends that no more than 1 or 2 commissioners serve on each ad hoc committee, so we're not violating the Brown Act. As far as the student ex officios go, you're not voting members, so you are able to serve on those ad hoc committees, and that doesn't, you won't be counted towards the Brown Act rules. So we can have 3 members, 2 being a commissioner and 1 being a student ex officio on any ad hoc committee, for example. Commissioners are welcome to provide updates on the progress of their respective committees at quarterly meetings as they're needed, and as we've been doing that in the past. And as mentioned, these ad hoc committees are temporary, and so they do get sunsetted once the goals of that ad hoc committee has been met. And should the need arise for future ad hoc committees, we can certainly add those at any commission meeting, as long as we can, get it on the agenda and have a discussion about it. That concludes staff's report. If there's any questions, be happy to answer them.
I would like to stay on the on ad hoc committee, education and outreach.
And I would like to stay on the community partnership ad hoc committee, and if possible, I'm keenly interested in the proposal for the 3rd ad hoc committee for strategic development beyond 2018.
I am interested in the education.
So currently I am on the education and the outreach, which I could remain, or I can add myself to the new one that you're proposing.
Currently, we have 2 commissioners who have expressed interest in ad hoc committee 1, the education and outreach, in addition to you being on there. So we would like to balance it out and have 2 members on there. So if you would like to move down to ad hoc committee 3, that would be...
I'll move on.
And at this point, we can keep Chair Burns on ad hoc committee 2, if that is something that I haven't received. Staff hasn't received any indications from Chair Burns as to what her preferences would be for this discussion. That's something we can certainly revisit at a future meeting and certainly move around, but this seems to work. There's a balance right now. I would just open it up to the students and see what ad hoc committees the students are interested in joining, if any.
I would be interested in joining the education and outreach.
I would be interested in joining the community partnership.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Christine, I need some clarification. You said we can't be 3 members of commission in one ad hoc committee?
Yes.
So you mentioned that? Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, any other comments before we?
Do we know what's the 3rd ad hoc committee would be?
And staff can go over all of them just to clarify them for all of you. So at this point, based on feedback received from the Commission, Ad Hoc Committee 1 for Education and Outreach consists of Commissioner Kojayan and Samerjan, as well as Student Ex Officio Alfred. Ad Hoc Committee 2 for Community Partnership consists of Chair Burns, Commissioner Perrian, and Ex Officio Austin. And Ad Hoc Committee 3 for Strategic Development for the Strategic Plan consists of Vice Chair Magrin and Commissioner Perrian. And if that sounds okay, staff would be happy to hear a motion just memorializing all of that.
Yes. Move to motion.
I'll second that.
Commissioner Khojayan?
Yeah, second.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Vice Chair Magrin?
Yes.
Commissioner Simmergen?
Yes.
Commissioner Perrian?
Yes.
Next item on the agenda, please.
Item B, reports, information only. Item B1, update on the Commission on the status of women's legislative agenda.
Vice Chair Magrin, members of the Commission, I do have quite the update for you. The last meeting of the Commission on the Status of Women with the legislative update, there was a list of legislative bills that the Commission had taken action to support, and at this point we have finality on those bills, on most of those bills, as the state legislator had until September 15 to pass all bills out of both houses, and then the governor had until October 15th to sign or veto any bills that landed on his desk. Of the 7 items on the Commission list, 6 were bills, and 1 was a House resolution that was adopted in March recognizing Women's History Month. So of the 6 bills that remained, 4 were signed into law by the governor. The first was AB 480 by Assemblymember Lorena Gonzalez Fletcher. This amends the Welfare and Institutions Code to clarify that diapers for infants and toddlers are a reimbursable expense under existing law for CalWORKs participants with young children in the Welfare to Work program. AB 1312, also by Assemblymember Lorena Gonzalez Fletcher, is regarding the rights of sexual assault victims, and this bill will ensure that rape kits are not destroyed prematurely, that survivors of sexual assault are aware of their rights and the resources available to them, and would codify important additional rights for survivors, such as free post-assault contraception. AB 1386 by Assemblymember Marie Waldron regarding a genomic cancer testing pilot program launches a breast and ovarian cancer screening and awareness pilot program to promote and encourage genetic testing screening when indicated by the U.S. Preventative Services Task Force and the Center for Disease Control and Prevention. And finally, the governor signed SB 500 by State Senator Connie Leyva regarding extortion that allows law enforcement and prosecutors to pursue perpetrators that use the threat of distribution of private and sexually explicit images to demand additional sexually explicit images, or money. AB 9, which was Assemblymember Cristina Garcia's bill regarding sales and use tax exemptions for feminine hygiene products, was postponed by the Appropriations Committee. So we'll have to wait and see until next year what will happen with that. And then Governor Brown did veto Senate Bill 169 by Senators Hannah Beth Jackson and Kevin De Leon. And this is regarding sex equity in education. This bill would have codified the protections and requirements granted in Title IX in order to ensure every student can pursue an education in a non-hostile, safe, and harmonious environment, and to provide that all forms of student-on-student sexual violence, including rape, sexual assault, sexual battery, and sexual coercion, are sexual harassment. So the governor's veto message is included in your report, and I'll summarize briefly what he mentioned. The governor indicated that this is not a simple issue, and that sexual harassment and sexual violence are serious and complicated matters for colleges to resolve. He indicated that given the strong state of our laws already in place, he is not prepared to codify additional requirements in reactions to a shifting federal landscape. He went on to say that this is a time to pause and survey the land, and he indicated that he will convene a group of knowledgeable persons who can help move this conversation forward. And that concludes the legislative update if you have any questions.
Thank you. Does anyone have any comments, questions?
At the next meeting, by February, legislator will reconvene. There will be a host of new bills, so at that point, staff will bring forward a fresh set of bills for consideration by the commission as far as any bills that reflect the commission's legislative platform and to support or oppose or watch.
All right. Thank you. Next item on the agenda, please.
Item B2, update on Glendale YWCA's Empowerment Brunch hosted by the Commission on the Status of Women.
Ms. Powers, could you please provide a report on this item?
Certainly. Very briefly, Vice Chair Magrin, members of the Commission. In August, the Commission approved a partnership with the Glendale YWCA to host a Women's Empowerment Brunch, and this will raise funds for the YWCA's Economic Empowerment Initiative to raise awareness about financial abuse and provide resources and tools to survivors of domestic violence. This brunch was supposed to take place in mid-November. The YWCA they found out soon after setting that date that they were being hosted by another organization who was raising money and recognizing them for their work, and it conflicted with the date that was selected. And so the YWCA chose to move this brunch to January, and I believe the new date is Wednesday, January 10, 2018. They did certainly take the commission up on the offer to partner, and they will be holding the brunch at the Brand Library Recital Hall, which is a beautiful setting, and that the use of that facility will be provided to them in kind due to the partnership they have with the commission. It shouldn't incur any additional staffing costs for the library or for the city because it does take place during business hours for the library. And that is it. If there's any questions. Just a brief update.
What time did we say? I know that January 10th, correct?
January 10th, yes, Wednesday, January 10th, 2018. I believe it's going to be a later morning or early, I think before noon, definitely. That the time hasn't exactly been given to us. Once they do have their invitation set, certainly staff will pass the information along to the commissioners so that the commissioners are aware and able to attend, spread within your networks. And the city of Glendale staff will certainly help promote this through our standard communication methods as well to make sure it's a success. I believe this is the first time Ms. Peterson is doing something like this. So it should be great. They're trying to get a list of dynamic speakers and have a moderator, and it should be a nice event, something different.
Very nice. Thank you. I'm looking forward. I'll definitely be attending. It'll be on my calendar. Anybody else have any comments, questions?
Is it the time for comments?
Yes.
Item 6, Commissioner staff comments.
As you know, I was out of country 2 months, and I didn't welcome and congratulate the new commissioner, Mrs. Alina Semerjian, on your appointment to the City of Glendale Commission on the Status of Women. All of us together, I think, with your experience that I heard, we can make a difference in the life of women in our community. Welcome and congratulations.
Thank you so much. It is an honor to serve with you, Ms. Gojan.
And also, I would like to inform you that I am attending on November 17, Los Angeles CSW for the State of Women and Human Trafficking campaign. Friday, this coming Friday.
Thank you. I'd like to first welcome the ex officios and congratulations. It was a privilege working with you during the interview process, and I'm delighted that both of you have agreed to join our commission. Wish you all the best the following year, and feel free to reach out to any one of us for support. And so welcome. I do have a request from the city for obtaining a report, perhaps if possible, for the next meeting in February. And that would be to get a report on the feasibility of the Commission providing updates on the public service announcement on GTV6 regarding Commission on the status of women activities and what we normally get engaged in.
If there's a second from any commissioners, staff can certainly bring back a report exploring that request.
I'll second that.
I'm sorry, I couldn't say congratulations to the new student. Congratulations and welcome. Thank you.
Well, this year I wasn't part of the process and the selection, but I was last year, and I think it's very exciting to see young students that are very active in the community and that are volunteering their services. As you know, I work for the school district, and it just gives me the chills to see, young girls like you supporting and being out there. Being a high school student is difficult, as it is. You have a lot of extracurricular activities and work and getting ready for college. So it's a pleasure having you here. Congratulations. Last year, the girls, I think they had a lot of fun. So we're looking forward for an exciting year with you both. And thank you for being here.
I would also like to congratulate ex officio Alfred and Malin Austin. I had a very long day with Commissioner Armina Perian, and it was lovely meeting everybody. And you two were exceptional. Everyone who interviewed was, but you guys really stood out, and I am very happy to be working with both of you. And please feel free to come to me with any questions here or outside of our time together here on the dais. So welcome and thank you, and I'm looking forward to learning from you as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much for choosing us. I think I can say that for both of us. We're both very excited to work under you guys, and thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead. Do you want to say something?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I would like to add to the comments. Are you closing or no? Okay, good. Good. I'd like to inform the Commission that I've had the privilege of becoming a judge on the Seroptimist of Glendale Live Your Dream Award. The deadline for submissions for the applications ends tomorrow. And the purpose of this cash award is to recognize women who have the challenge of being the primary breadwinner, or in many cases the sole breadwinner, at the same time pursuing lower division degree or certification programs. So this is an award to recognize these women. There will be 3 first place, second place, third place recognitions. As I stated, the deadline for submissions ends tomorrow. I believe the judging will take place sometime in January. However, I am not sure if I will be able to provide an update in the February meeting, but definitely in the May, as the recognition luncheon will take place in March 15th.
Thank you. Now, did you say there was an application out there? I know deadline's tomorrow, but if there's anybody that we think that maybe they could apply, where's the application?
I believe it is online.
Okay. All right. Okay. So I'll get that. Thank you.
Staff has a comment, possible? Thank you. So this afternoon, we received a message from the Office of Senator Portantino, and they asked that we share this information with the commissioners. Senator Portantino has been hosting several workshops geared towards sharing with parents the necessary tools to better communicate with their teens. They have hosted 2 successful workshops for Korean American parents and their teens, and now they're reaching out to the Armenian American parents and teens. They will be having a workshop titled Communicating with Your Teen as an Armenian Parent. It'll take place this Friday, November 17th at the Glendale Youth Center in Glendale. They will cover topics like how to become more socially engaged, how to actively participate in your child's school, and helping your children engage in community events through volunteering or working with local organizations. And they will also share the public safety do's and don'ts of social media. The presenters for this include our very own Dr. Eileen Magrin, representing the Glendale Unified School District, and as well as Lola Abrahamian, a lieutenant with the Glendale Police Department. And the flyer is in front of all of you, and we're putting it on there. So if anyone would like to RSVP, they can call or use the email address listed there, rsvpsenatorportantino@gmail.com, and it will be at 7 p.m. on the 17th. Thank you.
Thank you, Christine, for sharing. Just an update. So we have sent an all call to all of our Armenian-speaking parents in the district on yesterday, and there's one going out tomorrow as well, just to remind them about this event. I think that it is very important, especially as an immigrant parent, to know that not knowing the language and having the barriers is not limiting you from being active in your child's life. Therefore, I'm very excited on hosting this event on Friday. Looking forward to a lot of parents showing up. Thank you.
I would like to add that I received also from Portantino's office this email, and we forwarded to all Armenian organizations, and I think they will attend a lot. Perfect. Parents.
Thank you.
I think that this is actually very important as someone who used to be a teen with an Armenian parent. I understand that the differences between them and their parents are much smaller than us and our parents because of the immigration and the language gap and the culture gap. So I think this is a good first step to get them communicating and on the same page so they don't have that frustration of being disconnected in communication. Wonderful.
Do we have a motion to adjourn the meeting if there's no other comments?
No. Thank you, and we can motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second that.
Thank you. The meeting is over at 6:47.